All right, welcome back to The Explainer, where we get into the big topics. And today we're tackling a big one, Margaret Thatcher. I mean, she's easily one of the most consequential and definitely one of the most controversial leaders in modern history.
So, who was this woman who could inspire such intense feelings on both sides? And how did she manage to completely reshape the United Kingdom? Yeah, let's dive in and find out.
Her story doesn't start in some grand estate or the halls of power. Nope. It begins above a little grocery shop in a town called Grantham.
So, she was raised with these really strong values of, hard work, self-reliance. And she just shattered all expectations. First, she goes to Oxford to study chemistry, of all things. Then she becomes a barrister, specializing in tax law. But all along, you can tell she had her eyes on the real prize, a career in politics, which, let's be honest, was a world completely dominated by men at the time.
And get this is what's so interesting. The very things that got her rejected from a job early on, being headstrong and obstinate, those would become her political superpowers. They literally defined her style and were a huge part of what propelled her all the way to the top. Okay, so as she's climbing the ladder in the Conservative Party, she starts to build this political philosophy. And it wasn't just a small change. It was something that was going to fundamentally challenge everything Britain had been doing since the end of World War II. And this philosophy, it got a name, Thatcherism. It was a total, radical break from the past. Her whole goal was to turn around what she saw as Britain's decline. And how was she going to do it? By shrinking the government and putting power back into the hands of the individual. And this quote, this one just nails her core belief. There is no such thing as public money. I mean, wow. For her, it was simple. The government doesn't create wealth, it just takes money from taxpayers. So it had better be incredibly careful with how it spends it. You know that nickname, the Iron Lady? It was actually meant as an insult by the Soviets. But she loved it. She totally embraced it because, well, it was true. It perfectly captured her tough, unyielding approach. So let's see what happened when this Iron Lady actually became Prime Minister in 1979, right after this chaotic period of strikes called the Winter of Discontent. Right, so she gets into office, and there's no messing around. Her government immediately kicks off this whole series of really dramatic reforms. The goal wasn't just to tweak things, it was to completely reshape the British economy and society from the ground up. And things got tough, fast. She was facing a deep recession, unemployment was soaring, and even people in her own party were telling her, "You've got to change course. This isn't working." But did she? Nope. At the 1980 party conference, she came out with this legendary line, basically telling everyone she was not backing down, no way. And look at this chart. It tells you everything you need to know about our priorities. You can see it right there. Money was radically shifted away from things like housing and propping up industries and poured into law and order. This is Thatcherism in black and white, well, in a bar chart. So what did this actually mean for people? Well, take privatisation. This had a huge direct impact. The number of regular adults who owned shares in companies, it tripled. It went from about 7% all the way up to 25% while she was in office. She was trying to build what she called an enterprise economy. Okay, so there are two huge events during her time as prime minister that really, they just cemented her reputation for being this totally uncompromising leader. And they left behind this legacy that's a real mix of national pride on one hand and deep, deep social division on the other. First, you have the Falklands War, a quick, decisive military victory that led to this massive surge of patriotism, and it definitely helped get her reelected. But then you have the miners' strike, a brutal, year-long battle that completely broke the power of the unions. It totally changed industrial relations in Britain forever, but it also just devastated these mining communities, leaving scars that, honestly, are still there today. So, after 11 years in power, believe it or not, Thatcher was actually forced out by her own party in 1990. But the story doesn't end there. Not even close. The effects of her policies, they are still fiercely debated right now, today. This quote, this is probably one of her most famous, or maybe infamous. There is no such thing as society. It's often boiled down to being the core of her entire philosophy. And it really brings us to the central question, right?
Did she empower individuals, pushing them to take responsibility? Or did she just chip away at the sense of community, the idea that we're all in this together?
So let's break it down. What are the big takeaways here? Well, she absolutely shattered the old way of doing things. She privatized massive state-owned industries, she completely broke the power of the trade unions, and she really did create this enterprise economy. But, and this is a huge but, all of that came at a serious cost. It created huge social divides and real hardship for a lot of people. And that trade-off is something we're still arguing about.
So, was she the savior of Britain or the architect of its inequality? The modern Britain we see today, with its powerful financial sector, its weaker unions, its focus on private ownership, that country was, without a doubt, forged in the fires of the Thatcher years. And that leaves all of us still grappling with the really profound, really lasting consequences of her iron-willed convictions.